When my parents slid a $60,000 check across the dinner table to my younger brother, I sat in stunned silence. I had spent 5 years helping pay down their mortgage while putting my own life on hold. But when I asked for a small loan to secure a down payment of my own, my mother just shrugged and said, "Girls don't need real estate. Just rent somewhere, Clara." They thought I'd cry, throw a tantrum, or beg for their approval. Instead, I stood up, thanked them for dinner, and walked out. They didn't know that for 3 years, I'd been quietly saving every spare dollar while building a side business. I didn't just rent somewhere. I bought the duplex right across the street from my brother's new home, and that was only the beginning. Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into what happened when they realized who actually owned the neighborhood, leave a comment with the city you're watching from. My name's Clara, I'm 31 years old, and for a long time, I believed that loyalty to family meant putting your own dreams on hold. For 5 straight years after my father took an early retirement due to health issues, I quietly carried the weight of my parents' finances. I paid down $400 a month on their mortgage, covered their property taxes, and handled every unexpected repair that came up. I didn't mind doing it because I loved them, and I assumed that when the time came, that love and support would be mutual. Meanwhile, my younger brother, Julian, lived a completely different reality. Julian was the golden child, handsome, charismatic, and hopelessly irresponsible with money. While I was pulling 60-hour weeks as a financial analyst and living frugally in a cramped studio, Julian was switching jobs every 6 months, leasing luxury sports cars he couldn't afford, and taking weekend trips to Vegas. Every time he ran into financial trouble, my parents would bail him out, brushing off his reckless spending with a dismissive, "He's still finding himself." I never complained. I just kept my head down, saved whatever small portion of my paycheck was left over, and waited for the day I could finally buy a place of my own. I truly believed my parents saw my hard work and sacrifice. I had no idea that in their eyes, my loyalty wasn't something to be rewarded. It was just something to be taken for granted. The turning point came on a cool Sunday evening in late October. My parents had invited Julian and me over for dinner, something they called a family celebration, though they refused to tell me what we were celebrating until after dessert. My mother set down a freshly baked pie, her face glowing with an excitement I hadn't seen in years. My father tapped his glass with a spoon to get our attention, though it was clear this whole event was staged for one specific purpose. He looked at Julian with an expression of immense pride, the kind of look he had never once directed at me. "Your brother has big news," my father announced, his voice swelling. "He's officially buying his first home. A 4-bedroom suburban place with a pool." I was stunned. Julian had just lost his sales job 2 months prior and was currently working part-time. "That's great, Julian," I said carefully. "How are you managing the down payment?" That's when my mother slid a crisp, official cashier's check across the wooden table, directly toward Julian. I caught a glance at the amount. $60,000. My heart sank into my stomach. $60,000 was almost the exact total I had given my parents over the last 5 years to help keep their own house afloat. "We wanted to give him a proper start," my mother said softly, squeezing Julian's hand. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom, Dad, I've been saving for a down payment too. If you're giving out loans from the family, could you help me with even a fraction of that? Just $10,000 so I can lock in a small condo?" My mother looked at me, blinked, and then gave a small, almost dismissive shrug. "Oh, Clara, girls don't need real estate. Just rent somewhere. A husband will handle that for you eventually. Julian needs a house to build a family." My father didn't say a word. He just nodded in agreement. Julian smiled, casually sliding the $60,000 check into his jacket pocket without a single word of thanks to anyone. I sat there as the silence stretched across the table. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Something inside me simply went cold. I stood up, folded my napkin, thanked them for dinner, and walked out into the quiet night, knowing I would never ask them for anything again. What my parents didn't realize was that while I was helping them, I had also been quietly building my own financial foundation. As a financial analyst, I understood numbers in a way my family never cared to. For 3 years, every bonus from my day job, every dollar earned from my late-night freelance consulting gigs, and every penny of dividend income went straight into a high-yield investment account they knew nothing about. When I walked out of that Sunday dinner, I didn't waste time wallowing in self-pity. Instead, I opened my laptop and started analyzing the real estate market. I knew I couldn't afford an overpriced suburban property like Julian's, but I didn't want one anyway. I wanted cash flow, appreciation, and independence. 3 weeks later, I found an off-market duplex just 15 minutes from downtown. It was neglected, covered in outdated wallpaper, and in desperate need of cosmetic work, which kept competing buyers away. But structural assessment showed the bones were rock solid. The seller was an elderly landlord looking to retire quickly, and because I had $45,000 saved for a down payment and closing costs, I was able to make a clean, quick offer. The best part? The duplex sat directly across the street from the master plan neighborhood where Julian was purchasing his home. My parents thought they were giving him a head start in life, but while Julian was taking on a massive monthly mortgage he could barely afford, I signed the closing papers on my very first income-producing property. I rolled up my sleeves, hired a reliable local handyman, and spent my weekends painting, laying down luxury vinyl plank flooring, and transforming the rundown units into modern, desirable homes. 6 months after closing on the duplex, my strategy paid off. I moved into Unit A and immediately rented out Unit B to a young professional couple for $1,600 a month. That single rent check completely covered my mortgage, property taxes, and insurance, allowing me to live virtually expense-free. While every dollar of my salary had previously been stretched thin, I was now saving thousands of dollars every single month. I used that extra cash flow to aggressively build up my capital again. Within 18 months, leveraging the growing equity from the duplex, I secured a low-interest loan and purchased a second property, a triplex located down the boulevard. I renovated it, filled all 3 units with reliable tenants, and watched my monthly passive income explode. Meanwhile, Julian was drowning. The $60,000 my parents had handed him was gone, swallowed up by closing costs, high-end furniture, and luxury landscaping projects he couldn't afford. Because he lacked basic financial discipline, his high monthly mortgage began crushing him. Yet, during our rare family dinners, Julian continued to act as though he were a real estate mogul. He would brag about his custom granite countertops and his smart home security system, casting pitying looks my way. My parents, still completely oblivious to my real estate portfolio, would nod along proudly, occasionally chiming in to ask how my little rental apartment search was going. I simply smiled, ate my food, and kept quiet. I didn't need their validation anymore. My bank statements were providing all the validation I needed. The tension that had been building for nearly 2 years finally boiled over at Julian's 30th birthday party. He was hosting a lavish housewarming celebration at his suburban home, complete with catered food, an open bar, and dozens of guests. Looking around the immaculate patio, anyone could see it was a display of wealth he couldn't actually sustain. Behind the sparkling surface, I knew he was maxing out credit cards just to keep up appearances. My parents were in their element, holding court near the pool and boasting to anyone who would listen about how proud they were of their son, the successful homeowner. I stood near the edge of the patio, quietly sipping my drink, wearing a simple dress after spending the morning inspecting a maintenance repair at my triplex. Around 8 o'clock, after a few too many glasses of wine, Julian decided to turn his attention to me. He walked over with a smug grin, his arm draped around his girlfriend, and tapped his glass to command the attention of the surrounding guests. "Hey, everyone, I want to give a shout-out to my sister, Clara," Julian announced, his voice carrying clearly across the yard. "She's been working so hard lately. Clara, Mom told me you're still looking for a place. Honestly, if you're struggling to pay rent on that little studio of yours, I've got a spare room upstairs. I could let you rent it out for a discount. Family rate, of course." My mother chuckled, chiming in, "Oh, Julian, that's so sweet of you to offer. You know how hard it is for a single woman to manage housing on her own these days." The crowd chuckled nervously. Julian looked at me, expecting me to shrink back, blush, or offer a polite thank you to avoid making a scene. But I just set my drink down on the table, looked him dead in the eye, and smiled. The silence over the patio was heavy, broken only by the hum of the pool filter. "That's very generous of you, Julian," I said, my voice calm and carrying across the quiet crowd. "But I don't need to rent a room in your house." Julian smirked, folding his arms. "Come on, Clara, don't let your pride get in the way. There's no shame in admitting you can't afford to buy. Renting somewhere is just practical for you." "I think you misunderstood," I replied smoothly, looking around at the guests before locking eyes with my parents. "When Mom told me to rent somewhere, I took her advice. Only I didn't rent from someone else, I bought." My mother frowned, her voice dropping. "Clara, what are you talking about? You don't own a home." "Which property are you asking about, Mom?" I asked, allowing a slight smile to surface. "Do you mean the duplex directly across the street from Julian, where my tenants cover my mortgage every month? Or do you mean the triplex down the boulevard that I acquired last year?" Julian's smirk vanished instantly. The color drained from his face as he stared at me, completely speechless. My father blinked rapidly, his mouth opening and closing like he was trying to process a foreign language. "I bought the duplex 2 years ago with my own savings," I continued, looking directly at my brother. "And while you've been drowning in debt trying to maintain the illusion of success, my properties generate enough passive income to pay for themselves twice over. So thank you for the offer, Julian, but I'm doing just fine." The room fell into complete silence as the reality of my words settled in. Shortly after that party, Julian's financial facade completely crumbled. Unable to manage his mortgage payments and credit card debt, he was forced to put his suburban house up for sale at a loss. My parents, desperate to save him from financial ruin, came to my duplex 2 weeks later. They sat on my living room sofa, looking noticeably smaller and defeated. For the first time in my life, my father wouldn't meet my eyes, and my mother spoke to me with a newfound, hesitant respect. They begged me to take out a second mortgage on one of my properties to help pay off Julian's debts. I looked at them, remembering the $60,000 check they had handed him without a second thought, and the cold advice they had given me to just rent somewhere. "I love you both," I said gently but firmly. "And I forgive you for how you treated me. But I will not enable Julian's irresponsibility, nor will I jeopardize the financial independence I worked so hard to build. Julian needs to learn how to stand on his own feet." They left in silence, realizing that the quiet daughter they had taken for granted was no longer someone they could manipulate. Today, at 31, I own 5 income-producing units, completely free of family drama or financial dependence. I built my legacy not out of spite, but out of self-worth. If you've ever been underestimated by the people who were supposed to support you, remember this. The best revenge isn't getting angry. It's building a life so successful that your results speak for themselves. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have helped Julian or walked away like I did? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories, and I'll see you in the next video.